With that, we go to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the witnesses for appearing as well. Mr. Brady, I was especially interested in your comments. If you might recall, when I gave my opening statement, I dealt with this area of appraisals and appeals, and you have followed up on this. Let's just talk about a possible example to make this clear or clearer if we can. Let's assume that you have an FHA loan and the seller believes that there's a problem with the appraisal. I won't use terms like fraud, but there's a problem. And let's assume that the buyer thinks there's a problem as well. What is the process at that point to allow them to have an opportunity to impact that appraisal?
Well, it varies, and a banker that gets an appraisal that doesn't meet a contract price can ask the appraiser to talk to the seller and just try and justify it. Many times that doesn't occur, and that's where the problem exists. But also in a transaction where you get an appraisal a week before, let's be generous and say a week before closing, and the appraisal's not justifies the purchase price, that process takes much longer. The deal either blows up, doesn't close, both buyers or sellers are unhappy. In a new construction situation, many times the sellers, meaning us, will eat the difference, not justifiably, but in order to close a house because the appeal process or that process is too lengthy to get it done in a matter of time. So where would take place better is in the Tidewater Initiative, where an appraiser would contact the seller prior to issuing an appraisal so that they can either justify or not to inflate the price, the purchase price, so that it doesn't happen at the last minute.
I understand, but is that required? Is it required of the appraiser to have that conversation?
No.
And in a good many cases, that does not happen, is what you're saying.
That's correct.
Now, you indicated that you sell properties. Obviously, you do. You're a builder. But let's just take the homeowner who just has a home, typical person in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. If this person finds problems with the difference, that person may not be able to eat. That was a term you used.
That's correct.
To eat that loss. Mm-hmm. That person may find it unacceptable. At this point, can that person go out and say, well, let me just get another appraisal?
No, they can't. I don't believe they can go out and get another appraisal.
I believe you're right.
But time is of the essence, and they don't have time to justify the actual cost.
Well, it's not just the time. There are other factors involved, too. Ms. Wagner, let you have your hand's been up. I'd like for you to respond quickly, if you can, please.
Yeah, thank you. One concern that we do have with the appeal process is that we've seen, while there might be some legitimate cases for it, we have seen that type of process manipulated in the past that's led to overvaluations. We've seen lenders contacting appraisers and pressuring them to increase values or telling appraisers that the values have come in too low, and then there have been some manipulation within the system to then come back with
I may intercede for just a second. So we're concluding that we need a balance.
Right.
And there seems to be a pervasive belief that that balance has not been achieved. And that's what I want to work on to try to achieve that balance. I'd like to work with you, Ms. Wagner. I also want to work with you, Mr. Brady, to see if we can achieve that balance, because that's what's critical. And the realtors are telling me that balance has not been achieved. I've talked to homeowners who believe that it hasn't been achieved because once they get the first appraisal, getting another one is not an easy thing to accomplish. I think there's a waiting period before you can get another appraisal. Is that right, Ms. Wagner?
That's true for FHA loans.
For FHA, yes. Is that waiting period about 6 months?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're stuck with a 6-month appraisal. You're a homeowner. You're not a builder. You don't eat losses. You're trying to move up in the world. So I want to correct this, but let me quickly say this. I want to move to another area. None of you are here today to say that we should get rid of Dodd-Frank because of your concerns and the consternation that you have with one area of it. Is that a fair statement? Are you here to say you want to eliminate Dodd-Frank? Anyone? If so, kindly raise your hand. All right? Now, I want to go to one specific area of Dodd-Frank. We have a Defense Department in this country. We have a Securities and Exchange Commission to protect investors, Defense Department defends the country. Why wouldn't we have a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to protect consumers? Anybody here want to get rid of the CFPB today? If you're so, raise your hand. You think that it's just a horrible institution and we ought to just do away with it? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back the balance of my time. No hands raised for the record on either question. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired.